Alrighty, guys. So we are rolling through this show, and we're going to hit now a couple of free agent topics that we're going to bring to you today, and then we're probably going to end today's afternoon session with maybe like an Eric Bieniemy, an Eric Bieniemy kind of deep dive into what he could do with Washington and that football team out there. So this is Fogeles Football. I'm Spencer G. You will see some new coaching news today from the Arizona Cardinals, and then we're going to analyze a couple of player videos, really probably at least two. We're going to analyze two player videos, and then we're going to probably get to Eric Bieniemy, and then maybe recap, Derek Carr and the visit. So right now, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. And there has been just some rumors out there that the Atlanta Falcons could be, what do you call it with the tires? Waxing the tires? No, you're kicking an actual tire, taking your foot into a tire and trying to kick it with your toe, which sounds like it hurts, honestly, if you would kick a tire. I joke. I don't want to get off track. Some people might be annoyed by that kind of a joke, or just whatever. But I think overanalyzing sayings is funny. So anyway, kicking the tires. Lamar Jackson. You look at Lamar Jackson now in Atlanta. So the Atlanta Falcons, let's look at Arthur Smith. He's went 7-10 in 2 years. First year of Matt Ryan, kind of a total rebuilding roster. Kyle Pitts was selected there. Did they have Calvin Ridley? I think he got suspended mid-year, first year. Kind of a different team. Cordell Patterson. They would still run the football pretty heavily with Matt Ryan. They survived a couple of games, but again, that defense was kind of nowhere near where it needed to be. Kind of a miracle that they actually won that many games. Then they traded Matt Ryan. They did really well by him, a legend in Atlanta, probably the best quarterback in the Atlanta Falcons history. They trade him to Indianapolis where, he has Frank Reich and Jonathan Taylor, and that's the place that Matt wanted to go, and it didn't end well for Matt Ryan. All right. But Atlanta did well by him and got a third-round pick. And then this year, they had Marcus Mariota, and they tried out this offense where it's Patterson, it's heavy run game, heavy QB run game, run read option stuff. And it actually was very, very good for a lot of weeks, the running game. Patterson played well. They should have beaten the Saints week 1. That was the game that got away. They were up 13, and they blew that game. Then they went to L.A., and again, they competed with, at that time, a healthy Stafford and the Rams team. They competed there, and they lost. So I believe they were 0-2. Then they beat Seattle on the road, controlled the game in the second half, came home, beat Cleveland at home. They also had success against the 49ers at home. They won that game at home. This is a team that you can point to every game in the NFL and every team and say, it's a one-possession loss. But really, against the Washington, Redskins, Commanders, whatever you want to call them, at Washington, they were 8 yards away from, winning that game. You could say they could have scored in the last portion of that game and won. Against the Chargers, their defense kind of failed them. Justin Herbert kind of owned them in the second half. So their schedule was a little tough, but then, again, against Carolina, they got lucky to win that first game. Terrible how they allowed P.J. Walker to connect with DJ Moore in a prevent situation there. They survived, and then on Thursday night, they played ugly football with Marcus Mariota against the Steelers, a winnable game. They lost that game at home against Kenny Pickett and the Steelers. The Steelers turned out to be better than some would expect. So they played the AFC North, and the AFC North is tough. They had Baltimore in that division. They also went to Cincinnati, and that was the worst game of the year. That's where they got embarrassed. So they didn't play the North well. Pittsburgh beat them at home. But, you look at Atlanta, and this is a team that's really rebuilding. You have Arnold Ekabidi on the defensive line. Michael Walker, is a linebacker. Isaiah Oliver was hurt for most of the year. Casey Hayward got injured. But really, A.J. Terrell, who was also banged up, he had a really good season. He only missed probably 4 games. Grady Jarrett played well. They got Eric Harris from the Vegas Raiders from Oakland. He came in there, and he shined. He did some really good things for this team. So it was a young team. Richie Grant stepped up, had some big plays. The defense finished some games. Like, they beat the 49ers at home with Garoppolo. They crushed them 28-14. They did happen to beat Chicago when Chicago was very competitive. They went on the road, they lost versus the Saints twice. And then, back half of the year, you could point to they beat McSorley, and they beat the Bucs at home last game of the year when Brady played a half, but still was with Desmond Ridder, and they were still winning those games. So they found a way to scratch and claw and get 7 wins and be really competitive, and they didn't get blown out by anybody, even the best teams. Even the Chargers came there. The only blowout they had was when they went on the road to Cincinnati. This is a young team that, again, is kind of learning how to finish games the right way. They're a physical team. Drake London played really well at stretches this year. Drake London's about all the right stuff. Drake London, it's just in terms of him protecting the football, not fumbling the ball. But Drake made explosive plays. Desmond Ridder showed a lot of promise. So now let's get to where we're thinking this year. Let's get to the current period. So I really like how this build is going because it's organic. You're taking your lumps, but you're not getting flat out embarrassed. You're showing signs of progress. You're showing signs of growing. Troy Anderson, let's look at the rookie class. Troy Anderson, this offensive line. Okay, this offensive line is playing really well. Tyler Algier is running the football at a high clip. Kyle Pitts was out the majority of the season. Now, haters will say, hey, well, he wasn't getting the ball anyway, but Kyle was blocking his ass off, and he's also sets everything up for like Zacchaeus and all of the other receivers that you have. So you look at this roster. They now have $50 million in cap space. They got off of the Matt Ryan deal. They now have the second most cap money in the NFL to spend. They have the 8th overall draft pick. You have Grady Jarrett, who's playing at a high level. Tom Brady's out of your division. All right. You have, New Orleans doesn't seem that exciting. New Orleans seems totally beatable. This is a team that needs to win the NFC South next year, period. Arthur Smith needs to go double-digit wins in year 3. It's a little put-up or shut-up time. I believe that excluding maybe injuries to your starting quarterback, you have to find a way to probably get to 9 or 10 wins, either wild card your way in or win the division. I think you got to win this division. I think it's a very gettable division. You're also playing the AFC South, Houston, Indianapolis. You play Chicago again, so you play the North, Minnesota, Green Bay with a new quarterback. This is a team that I think could take the leap next year as the Atlanta Falcons. And again, I'm a huge Arthur Smith fan because Arthur is genuine. He's totally himself. He's going to challenge players. And this build from Terry Fontenot so far has been a lot of little moves, but it's panned out. Felipe Franks is an interesting player. They're a very likable young team that works their tail off, and they're physical. And Algier is physical. Cordell Patterson is a dang physical, great runner at this stage in his career. He's balling. All right, so with the cap space situation, are they going to sign Tony Pollard? What are they going to do in Atlanta? I think that Marcus Davenport is a huge target now. Dean Pease really educated this team with all his years of expertise, but they still gave up too many big plays, too many soft zones, too many 3rd and longs. Ryan Nielsen comes in. I think he could take off where Dean left and even elevate this team. So I'm excited to see what Nielsen's going to do. I'm excited for this pass rush. At number 8, a dream pick would be Tyree Wilson if he's still on the board. Because he's 6'5", has so much talent, could be like a Myles Garrett, could be a star in this league, has all the measurable size and character that you look for. But he's probably going to go top 5, maybe to Seattle. All right, so that leaves you with maybe Myles Murphy. Maybe Murphy or Lucas Van Ness, but I'd like Myles Murphy, a guy who can play inside and outside on the D-line. You get Davenport, Grady Jarrett, Myles Murphy. I would love that. Then I'd probably re-sign Isaiah Oliver, a guy who I think has potential that has just been injured. You try to re-sign him, all right? And then you probably need to go find another wide receiver, maybe Jacoby Myers, or then you maybe look and you should see how much Tony Pollard is, because then, unfortunately for Patterson, you might look at trading Patterson, because then you'll have, Tony Pollard and then Algier. You can really be a running football team because you have Desmond Ridder, who's young, at the quarterback spot. Now let's talk about Lamar Jackson here. I know I spent 11 minutes just talking about Atlanta. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson. You guys will probably comment on the video what should happen anyway. All right, so Lamar Jackson, quarterback for the Ravens, MVP just several years ago, won a playoff game over Tennessee, has been a very productive quarterback when he's been healthy. A dual threat quarterback, a guy that can beat you from the pocket, but when he gets outside the pocket, he's the best running quarterback in the National Football League. He makes guys miss. He keeps defensive coordinators up at night. He can go 70 yards to the crib. Now, has he been injured? Yes. Is he going to be expensive? Yes, because he's an MVP. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's only 25, 26 years old. All right, and you nail that position, you're going to have a chance to win big. So I think Ridder looked good last year. I think Ridder looks like a pocket passer that can develop into a top 10 guy. So I'm higher on Ridder than a lot of people are. I looked at Jalen Hurts and that model of a second or third round quarterback hitting and just how inexpensive and how you could build the rest of your roster out. I don't feel like giving up the 8th pick in the draft and other draft picks. So I trust Ridder. Now, here's the thing, right, is that Marcus didn't do that well. So they put in Ridder, which again shows you they trust Ridder a little bit. But in practice, if they see that Ridder can't make the throws necessary, if they see that he turns the ball over too much, they don't see Ridder as a starter, they see him as a backup quarterback, that changes things drastically, and that's knowledge that we don't have. So it seems like the Falcons like Ridder. It seems like it's that way. But if Ridder, they would know from practice. This is where practice is key. Because we only saw a couple of games against okay opponents, and Ridder did fine in those games late in the season. 4-game sample size against the Cardinals that were not very good and Tampa that weren't playing their starters. And then in Baltimore, he was fine. But as a rookie, he showed, flashes of playing pretty solidly. But here's the thing. If they have a lot of question marks about Ridder as a starter for this year, then you get into it's year 3. Then you get into if Ridder's going to make tons of mistakes, then it's, oh my God, panic button time. Then comes in Arthur Blank. Then comes in, hey, Arthur Smith better save your job. Then you're thinking, okay, we better swing. And Lamar Jackson put it this way. If you're just taking Ridder or Lamar Jackson, you're going to take if the money is equal, you're going to take Lamar Jackson on this team. All right? But then it's not just Lamar Jackson in a vacuum. It's the money. It's not just Lamar Jackson. It's the money. It's the draft picks. It's the capital that you're giving up. You're allocating probably $40 million to Lamar Jackson, taking up all of your cap space. You still have holes on that defensive line, and you're giving up a draft pick. And then you look at Drake London, who's your number 1 receiver. You don't really have a second really good receiver. Kyle Pitts can certainly be a star with Lamar Jackson, as Mark Andrews was, but I think it's a lot to give up. And I look at a team actually like the New York Jets that have Sauce Gardner, that have Garrett Wilson, that are the 2 rookies of the year, that have Breece Hall, that have really just drafted well, that have a solid defensive line with Quinnen Williams in his prime. I look at the Jets, and I think the Jets are a more complete football team with more top-end talent. I think the Jets, and they are in dire need, the Jets, of a quarterback, where I view Ridder and the Falcons is building it organically. I think the Jets need a splash. They had to fire their offensive coordinator because it got so bad up there. The Jets are more in need of a star quarterback, and the Jets actually, if it hits with Lamar Jackson, can be a team that can catapult very quickly. I believe that the Falcons need to get Myles Murphy or Tyree Wilson. They need to get a defensive line help. They need to get secondary help, okay? If they get that, you get a second wide receiver, and you're all set to go with Desmond Ridder. You can compete with Ridder. And again, I view Ridder as having a really solid year. As a quarterback starting, I view Ridder as playing really good football. I do. I think that you can win games. I think they can win this division with Ridder, and I view Ridder as a successful starting quarterback. So that's where I'm at. I'm not moving on from Ridder and giving up the farm and picks for Jackson. But curious to see what the fans have to say about this one. I know it's a lengthy video. Hope you guys will pay some attention to it. Thank you.